It always starts the same way. You meet her, and for a brief moment you think you've found someone who truly sees you. Someone who sees past the surface, the facades, the masks we all wear. Her eyes meet yours, and she smiles. That smile, it's like a promise. She calls you a good man. She tells you you're different. She whispers those sweet words you've waited a lifetime to hear. You're the kind of man women dream of, and in that moment you believe it, don't you? You want to believe it. You've spent your life chasing validation, hoping that this time you'll finally be enough. You think if you're good enough, kind enough, reliable enough, she'll see your worth, respect you. But what if I told you that very idea, the idea that your goodness will win her love, is exactly what will cause her to lose respect for you? What if I told you that Carl Jung, a man who spent his life staring into the darkest corners of the human psyche, saw this trap long before you ever walked into it, not with comforting words or empty advice, but with the brutal clarity of a man who understood that love and respect are not earned through being good. Jung uncovered a terrifying truth about why women lose respect for good men, and the scariest part? Most men will never see it coming. But you're about to. Carl Jung spent his life mapping the unconscious, the vast, unseen forces that shape every thought, every feeling, every relationship we have without us even realizing it. And one of his most unsettling discoveries was this. In love, people rarely see one another as they truly are. They don't fall in love with the person standing before them, they fall in love with a projection, a carefully constructed fantasy, a story written in the shadows of their own mind. And for women, Jung uncovered something even darker. Many don't fall in love with you, they fall in love with who they imagine you could become. And the cruel irony? The better a man tries to be, the kinder, the more patient, the more stable, the more perfectly he becomes the canvas for this unconscious projection. His goodness creates an illusion of perfect safety, of certainty, but here lies the terrifying truth. The moment reality seeps through the cracks, the moment your real, flawed, imperfect self emerges, that fantasy begins to rot from within. The mask slips, the illusion shatters, and with it, so does her respect. Every good man carries this same belief, etched into him long before he even knew what love was. The belief that if he is good enough, kind enough, giving enough, then finally, someone will love him for who he truly is. It's not just a thought, it's a script, written deep into the fabric of his psyche, stamped there by every story he grew up hearing, every teacher, every parent, every movie, every voice that told him, "Be the good man, and love will follow." So he learns to suppress his anger, his boundaries, his wild edges. He learns to hide the parts of himself he fears won't be accepted. He makes himself safe, predictable, pleasant. He listens endlessly. He comforts without question. He shows up again and again, hoping that this devotion will earn him her respect, that this consistency will buy her love. But what Jung uncovered is that beneath this endless goodness lies something darker, a silent, unconscious bargain, the hope that if he gives enough, if he bends enough, if he becomes exactly what he thinks she wants, he will finally be safe from rejection. But that very hope, that desperate hunger to be accepted, is the seed of the trap. Because the more a man gives from that place of need, the more invisible he becomes. But here's what he doesn't see. The more he gives from that gnawing place of need, the more he dismantles the very tension that once drew her in. Because the unconscious feminine isn't drawn to what is fully known, fully predictable, fully safe. It's drawn to the unknown, to the mystery, to the presence of a man who remains rooted in himself, untouchable, uncompromising. Every time he gives a little more, sacrifices a little more, bends a little further, he chips away at the polarity that once electrified the space between them. And without that tension, something sacred begins to die. She doesn't even notice it at first. But it's there, in the way her laughter fades quicker, the way her texts get shorter, the way her eyes start to look through him instead of at him, The man who once made her heart race now feels like background noise. Jung saw this collapse again and again. What begins as admiration quietly curdles into contempt, and tragically the good man, sensing that something has shifted, makes the fatal mistake. He tries harder. He leans in further. He gives more, not realizing that every extra ounce of effort only accelerates the loss of the one thing he cannot beg for, her respect. And when the projection fully collapses, the shift inside her is undeniable, though rarely spoken aloud. At first, it shows up in small fractures, a subtle restlessness. Conversations that once flowed effortlessly now stumble, weighed down by awkward pauses. The playful teasing vanishes, laughter dries up. Her gaze, once warm and locked onto you, now flickers, distracted, distant. She grows impatient with your stories, disinterested in your presence. The man who once stirred her imagination now feels suffocating in his predictability. Jung warned, the unconscious cannot tolerate the death of polarity. Without the spark that projection once provided, something deeper within her begins to stir, a gnawing dissatisfaction. The animus awakens, whispering discontent. She starts to question the relationship, not consciously understanding why. He's too nice, she thinks, too available, something's missing. But the truth lies far beneath the rationalizations. What's missing is mystery. What's missing is polarity, the raw, unclaimed masculine presence that once activated her unconscious desire is gone, replaced by safety, comfort, sameness. And with it, her respect doesn't merely fade, it decays. Slowly at first, then with accelerating force, until one day, even the sight of you stirs nothing at all. And sensing this shift, most good men do exactly what guarantees their downfall. They try to fix it. They feel her pulling away, they hear the cooling tone, see the warmth bleeding from her eyes. The conversations grow shorter, her touches fewer. Panic creeps in, and instead of holding their ground, they scramble, they double down on kindness. They flood her with reassurance. They become endlessly available, always agreeable, hoping that if they can just prove their devotion loud enough, often enough, she will see them again, choose them again. But Jung saw this as a tragic spiral, because the more a man performs for lost approval, the faster he dissolves into something unrecognizable, to her and to himself. What truly repels her now is not a lack of goodness, it's the absence of masculine rootedness. The unwavering presence she once felt is gone, replaced by a man grasping, pleading, chasing her validation, and nothing is more repulsive to the unconscious feminine than a man who has abandoned his own center. Every plea, every apology, every desperate attempt to be enough only magnifies her contempt, not always consciously, but deeply, instinctually. And the man, blind to this truth, spirals further, digging deeper into the very behaviors that will guarantee his rejection, not by her decision, but by the inevitable collapse of her desire. And this is where most good men fall into the deepest trap. They feel her pulling away, they feel the warmth draining from the room, the cold creeping into her voice, and inside panic takes hold. Their instinct? To do more, to be more present, to be more agreeable, to prove, desperately, that they are worthy of being kept. They double down on goodness. They smother her with understanding. They erase their own boundaries, silence their own needs, and twist themselves into whatever shape they believe will win her back. But Jung warned, this is not love. This is self-betrayal. With every sacrifice of self, they chip away at the very thing she once respected, their center, their sovereignty, their unmoved core. What she admired was never their compliance. It was the quiet strength that could not be bent. And every time they perform to please her, they declare, without words, that her validation defines them. And nothing kills respect faster than a man who cannot stand alone. Yet no one teaches this. We are taught to win love by earning approval. We are taught that to be a good man is to sacrifice self. But Jung saw the truth. A man who trades his core for the illusion of being chosen is not a man who will be loved. He is a man who will be discarded. because even she cannot love the shadow of a man who no longer possesses himself. Jung called this path individuation, not a journey of self-improvement, but a brutal, lifelong process of becoming whole within yourself. It is not the shallow pursuit of confidence, not the polished performance of strength. It is the dismantling of everything false, the masks, the personas, the hollow roles you've learned to play. It is the death of the good man facade. Jung warned that true individuation is an inner crucifixion. You must die before you die. You must set fire to the illusions that have chained you to external validation. Because as long as you remain fragmented, as long as you outsource your worth to the gaze, the approval, the acceptance of a woman, you will remain trapped. Trapped in a cycle of seeking, performing, and silently bleeding out your dignity. The man who has not individuated is a slave, to cultural scripts that told him how a man should be, to childhood wounds that left him aching to be chosen, to unconscious projections that keep him dancing for love, that can never complete him. He is not free. He is a prisoner wearing a mask he no longer recognizes, and until he reclaims what he abandoned within himself, his wildness, his darkness, his untamed core, he will never command respect. Because how can any woman truly respect a man who has yet to respect himself? But this is why so few men ever choose this path. Because individuation demands what men fear most, not failure, not rejection, but solitude. And not the comfortable kind, not the curated weekend retreat or the fleeting moment of quiet, no, the kind where you are stripped bare, stripped of applause, stripped of validation, stripped of every role, every identity, every illusion you've clung to, left alone with the raw, unfiltered silence of your own mind. Jung warned, this solitude is terrifying because it drags a man face to face with what he has spent a lifetime avoiding, the emptiness he hoped a woman would fill, the unworthiness he tried to silence with her attention, the hole he masked with her love. And here lies the deepest trap. Most men would rather lose themselves than lose her. They would rather endlessly perform than confront the terror of standing alone, naked, in the mirror of their own soul. They tell themselves it's love. They tell themselves they're fighting for connection. But Jung named it for what it is, possession. Because as long as a man cannot bear the weight of his own solitude, he will remain enslaved to the need to be chosen. And no woman can truly respect a man who fears his own shadow more than he fears losing her. But there's another force at play, one Jung warned is often hidden, even from the women themselves. He called it the Animus, the inner masculine image that lives, often unexamined, inside every woman's psyche. When the Animus is immature, undeveloped, or unintegrated, it becomes a tyrant. Not a partner, not a guide, a tyrant. It speaks with false certainty. It cloaks itself in moral superiority. It judges ruthlessly. And it projects these distortions onto the men around her. At first, this animus fuels idealization. You are cast not as a man, but as an archetype, the hero, the savior, the perfect man. You become the vessel for her unconscious masculine fantasy. But the moment your humanity leaks through, the moment you fail to match the fantasy, the animus turns. The hero becomes the disappointment. The savior becomes the betrayer. The perfect man becomes the flawed man. And the more compliant you become, the more it despises you. Because an unintegrated animus does not seek a partner to walk beside, it seeks a puppet to control. And the man who abandons his center, who erases his boundaries to appease this tyrant, will always be met not with love, but with escalating contempt. Jung witnessed this dynamic again and again, women possessed by an unconscious animus projecting their inner battles onto men who had no idea they'd been conscripted into a war they cannot win. And most men, blind to this force, keep trying, foolishly, to win a game whose very structure ensures their defeat. But the more they try, the more they lose. Because no man can earn the respect of an animus he seeks to appease. And women, Jung warned, are often raised in cultures that reward them for avoiding this confrontation. They are told they are pure, intuitive, complete, just as they are. Rarely are they challenged to examine the darker corners of their psyche. Rarely are they taught to face the animus within, to question its distortions, its false certainties, its ruthless demands. And when this inner masculine force remains unintegrated, it does not lie dormant. It grows, feeding in the shadows. It begins to speak through their judgments, through their expectations, through the unconscious fantasies of what a man should be. And here lies the danger. When a woman has not faced her animus, she projects it outward, onto every man she meets. She casts them into roles they never chose. She blames them for wars they never started. And the good man, blinded by his longing to be loved, steps willingly into the trap. He thinks, if I'm good enough, loving enough, understanding enough, I can win her approval. But with every effort, he feeds the very force that will destroy him. Because an unintegrated animus cannot be appeased. It does not seek partnership, it seeks domination. And the man who bends to it will never be met with gratitude, only with mounting disdain. And here's the paradox Jung understood. What truly commands a woman's respect is not endless goodness, not availability, not blind devotion. It is strength, not the strength of force or dominance, but the strength of self-possession. The man who no longer performs, the man who no longer needs to be chosen, the man who no longer chases approval. He stands, rooted, unshaken, not as a reaction to her, but as a sovereign expression of who he is. And this presence disrupts the animus. It cannot control what it cannot define. It cannot dominate what it cannot possess. The very mystery of him, the unshakable core, rekindles the polarity that projection had once artificially created. Jung taught the individuated man, a man who has faced his own shadow, integrated his wounds, and balanced the masculine and feminine within, is immune to projection. He is no longer a puppet dancing for her unconscious fantasies. He becomes something far more dangerous, a mirror. And while many will recoil from that mirror, retreating back into familiar illusions, those who are ready, truly ready, will stand before it with reverence. Because in a world drowning in men performing for approval, the man who stands alone, who moves from his own center, is magnetic, not because he seeks respect, but because he has already claimed it, from within. But here's where most men will fall short. They will hear this truth, they will feel the sting of recognition, and then they will run. Back to old patterns, back to the comfort of performance, back to the desperate chase for validation, because to stand alone, truly alone, without applause, without approval, without the numbing illusion of being the good man, terrifies them. Jung warned individuation is not for the faint of heart. It demands that you die before you die, that you set fire to the false self, that you strip away every mask you've worn to please others. And this process, it is brutal. You will lose people. You will be misunderstood. You will be called arrogant, cold, distant, not because you are, but because you no longer fit the roles others need you to play. And many men staring into this fire will retreat. They will trade their soul for comfort. They will choose the fleeting warmth of approval over the eternal weight of self-possession. But understand this, every time you do, every time you choose performance over truth, you do not merely stall your growth, you fracture your soul. You become less of the man you were meant to be, and respect, it dies, because no woman, no matter how loving, can truly respect a man who cannot stand in his own truth. And this is the paradox that traps most men. They fear being alone more than they fear being fake. They would rather lose themselves than lose her. They would rather perform endlessly than face the terror of standing in the raw silence of their own being. Jung taught, until a man can stand in that solitude, until he can face the parts of himself he has spent a lifetime avoiding, he will never be free. Because every mask you wear to be loved becomes a prison. Every compromise you make to be accepted erodes the core of who you are. And here lies the brutal choice: confront the abyss and forge a self that is whole, or remain trapped in an endless cycle of self-betrayal. But know this: no woman, no matter how deeply she once loved you, can respect a man who has not chosen to respect himself first. And as long as you live to be chosen, you will never truly be. And if you've made it this far, if something inside you is stirring, don't ignore it. Don't let this be another truth you hear and forget. Stop. Look at your life. Look at the patterns. How many times have you performed? How many times have you betrayed yourself just to be chosen? How many times have you mistaken validation for love, respect for approval? This stops now, but only if you choose it. No one can walk this path for you. No woman can complete you. No praise can fill the void of an unclaimed soul. Jung left us not just a warning, but a challenge: to stop blaming women, to stop chasing validation, to stop performing for love, and to start the brutal, beautiful, lifelong work of becoming whole. If this message struck something deep within you, don't let it fade. Take a breath. Reflect. Ask yourself, where have you performed? Where have you abandoned your truth to be chosen? And if you know another man trapped in this cycle, share this with him. Like, subscribe, not for the numbers, but for the awakening, because every man who begins this path helps break the illusion for others. One man at a time, one truth at a time. The world does not need more men seeking to be good. It needs more men willing to be whole. The choice is yours. It has always been yours.